Last night you set an alarm. You told yourself what time you'd fall asleep. You even believed it. But your body never agreed to that plan. Somewhere around 11 p.m., while you were still scrolling, something inside you had already made a different decision. It wasn't willpower. It wasn't discipline. It was a clock. A real one. Running quietly inside every cell of your body, keeping its own time, ignoring the one on your phone. You've been told that sleep is simple. Go to bed earlier. Get 8 hours. Wake up refreshed. But the real answer is far stranger than that. Your bedtime isn't something you choose. It's something you inherit. Here's what almost no one tells you. Every person on Earth is born with a biological clock already set. Scientists call it a chronotype. Some people are wired to feel alert at dawn. Others don't switch on until the sun is already sinking. This isn't a preference. It's not laziness. It's architecture, built into your genes before you ever took your first breath. In the early 2000s, a researcher named Till Roenberg started asking a simple question. What if the reason so many people feel exhausted has nothing to do with how much they sleep, and everything to do with when? He surveyed tens of thousands of people across Europe, mapping out when they naturally wanted to fall asleep and wake up, if nothing forced them otherwise. What he found reshaped how scientists think about tiredness itself. He called it social jet lag. Not the jet lag from flying across time zones. A quieter version. The gap between when your body wants to sleep and when your job, your school, your alarm clock demands you rise instead. Roenberg discovered that most people live in a constant, low-grade version of jet lag every single day, without ever leaving their own city. Doesn't that sound familiar? Picture it like this. Your internal clock is a passenger on a plane. Your daily schedule is the pilot. And most days, the pilot lands you somewhere your body never agreed to go. This clock isn't metaphorical. It has a name. Scientists call it the circadian rhythm, and it lives in a tiny cluster of cells in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Say that once and forget the name. What matters is what it does. It tracks light. It tracks darkness. It releases hormones on a schedule that has nothing to do with your calendar and everything to do with your biology. A neuroscientist named Russell Foster spent decades studying this exact system. He discovered that the eye isn't only a tool for seeing. It's also a light sensor feeding information straight into your circadian clock, whether you're paying attention or not. Every scroll through your phone at midnight is a signal. Every fluorescent light at 2 a.m. tells your brain something. It tells your brain it's still daytime, even when your body knows better. Have you ever wondered why you can feel bone tired at 9 p.m., force yourself to stay awake, and then suddenly feel wide awake again at 11? That's not a second wind. That's your circadian rhythm fighting back against a schedule it never approved. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Foster's research showed that ignoring this rhythm doesn't just make you tired. It changes how your brain performs. Memory, mood, decision-making. All of it dips when you fight your internal clock instead of working with it. You're not becoming forgetful. You're becoming out of sync. This is where the story gets even stranger, because your chronotype isn't fixed for life. It shifts. Teenagers, for example, experience a well-documented delay in their circadian rhythm, biologically pushed later, not because of rebellion, but because of a hormonal shift in the brain. Which means that early school start time so many teenagers struggle with isn't a discipline problem. It's a biology problem, forced onto a system that was never built to start that early. A sleep researcher named Charles Czeisler, at Harvard, spent years studying what happens when society ignores this. He worked extensively with shift workers, people whose jobs demand they be alert when their biology insists they should be asleep. What he found was sobering. Chronic circadian misalignment doesn't just cause fatigue. Over time, it's been linked to higher risks of metabolic problems, mood disorders, and impaired immune function. Your body isn't just tired when this happens. It's confused. Think about that phrase again. Your body is confused. Not lazy. Not undisciplined. Confused, because the signals it's receiving don't match the rhythm it evolved to follow. So why does any of this matter to you, tonight, lying in bed with your phone still glowing in your hand? Because the moment you understand this, everything about your relationship with sleep changes. That struggle to fall asleep at the right time isn't a personal failure. It's a mismatch between your biological schedule and your social one. Your late-night alertness isn't a flaw. It might be exactly what your internal clock was built to do. Here's the part that reframes everything. Roenberg's research found something almost poetic. When people were finally allowed to sleep according to their natural chronotype, without alarms, without forced wake times, their sleep quality improved dramatically. Not because they slept longer. Because they finally slept in sync with themselves. Imagine your body as a plant, and your circadian rhythm as its need for sunlight. You can force a plant to grow anywhere. You can grow it in a dim corner and expect it to reach for the light on your schedule instead of its own. But it will never fully thrive there. It will survive. It just won't flourish. That's what chronic sleep struggle actually is. Not a personal weakness. A body reaching for a rhythm the modern world keeps interrupting. Does that mean you should ignore every deadline and sleep whenever your body feels like it? Of course not. Life still demands structure. But understanding this changes how you build that structure. Instead of forcing yourself into someone else's ideal bedtime, you start paying attention to your own signals. When do you naturally feel alert? When does your focus quietly start to fade? Those aren't random moments. They're data, straight from a clock that's been running since before you were born. And this is where the science becomes strangely comforting. If you've ever felt broken because you can't fall asleep at 10 p.m. like everyone insists you should, you're not broken. You might simply be a different chronotype, living inside a world built around the average one. Foster's research on light exposure adds one more piece. Morning light, real daylight, within the first hour of waking, has an outsized effect on resetting your circadian rhythm each day. Not a lamp. Not a screen. Actual daylight, hitting your eyes, telling your suprachiasmatic nucleus, this is when the day begins. It's a small act. But it recalibrates a system that governs almost everything else about how you feel. So tonight, when you're lying there, waiting for sleep that won't come at the time you think it should, remember this. Your bedtime was never really a decision you made alone. It was negotiated, quietly, between a clock in your brain and a world that rarely asks what time that clock prefers. Last night you set an alarm. You told yourself what time you'd fall asleep. But your body never agreed to that plan. It was already keeping its own time, the whole time, waiting for you to finally listen.